Somewhere in the world there is a place so cold that the air itself turns to ice before it reaches the ground. This is Oymyakon, Siberia, the coldest inhabited place on Earth. At -71 degrees, metal shatters on contact. Rubber cracks like dry paper, and breath freezes before it ever leaves your lips. This is not a place that forgives carelessness. This is not a place that waits for you to be ready. This is a place that demands everything, every single day, just to survive. And yet, people live here. They wake up here every morning. They work here. They raise their children here. They grow old here. In the coldest inhabited place on Earth, life continues. Quietly, stubbornly, beautifully. But today, in that silence, someone heard something that did not belong. A heartbeat that should not have been alone. And without hesitation, she walked toward it. Let the white settle around you for a moment. Take a slow breath and let it go. There are no city sounds here. No traffic moving through wet streets. No voices drifting from open windows. No hum of electricity running through the walls of warm buildings. Just the slow and heavy breathing of the wind, moving across an endless frozen world that stretches in every direction as far as the eye can see. The snow here is not soft and fresh like the snow of a quiet winter morning. It is packed and ancient. Layers upon layers of winters, stacked on top of each other over decades, each one colder and harder and more permanent than the last. The trees stand completely bare and completely still. Their branches coated in a thick white silence that makes them look less like living things and more like sculptures, carved carefully from the cold itself and placed here to mark the edges of a world that belongs entirely to winter. The sky sits low and pale and impossibly heavy above everything. And somewhere beneath that pale and heavy sky, a horse was standing alone, tied to one of those bare and frozen trees. Waiting. It was not moving frantically. It was not calling out into the frozen air. It was simply standing, the way animals stand when they have been waiting so long that waiting has become the only thing they know how to do. The frost had settled into its coat like a second skin. Ice crystals had formed along the ridge of its nose, across its muzzle, and around the soft edges of its eyes. Every breath it released rose slowly into the frozen air, a small pale cloud, and then disappeared. Proof that something warm was still alive inside all of that cold. Its movements were slow and deliberate and careful. In this kind of temperature, every step costs something. Every breath is an effort that the body has to consciously decide to make. And yet, it was still standing. There is something quietly and profoundly powerful about that single fact. Still standing, in the coldest place on Earth, when everything around it was telling it to stop. Still standing, covered in frost and exhaustion and the full unbearable weight of the cold, because something deep inside it had not given up yet. That something, that quiet refusal to stop, is the same thing that lives inside every creature that has ever waited in the cold for someone to come. And someone was coming. Watch how she moves toward it. No sudden steps. No sharp movements. No loud sounds cutting through the frozen air. Just slow and calm and completely steady, the way you move toward something that needs to know it is safe before it can allow itself to believe it. This is the universal language of trust. It needs no translation. It works the same way in every country, in every language, at every temperature on Earth. In a world this cold and this harsh and this unforgiving, gentleness feels like a revolution. She reached out her hand. Slowly, openly, without demand. And the horse, this frost-covered, exhausted animal that had been standing alone against a frozen tree in -71 degrees, turned its heavy head toward her. Not away. Toward. That single movement said everything that needed to be said in that moment. It recognized something in her presence that the cold could not touch and the frost could not cover. It recognized safety. It recognized that the waiting was finally over. She did not need to say a single word. Her presence said everything that words could never fully capture. You are not alone anymore. I am here. And we are going to walk out of this together. The knife moved through the rope in one quiet and deliberate motion. Clean. Calm. Final. And just like that, the thing that had been holding it in place in the cold, the thing that had kept it tied to that frozen tree in that desolate place, was gone. There is something deeply and universally human about this moment. The simple act of cutting away what was keeping something trapped. Sometimes that is all it takes. One person. One decision. One small and quiet act of courage in an enormous and indifferent frozen world. No audience watching. No applause waiting at the end. Just a knife, a rope, and the willingness to stop and do something when most people would have kept walking. The rope fell into the snow. And for the first time, the horse was free. It stood still for a moment. As if the freedom itself needed a second to be recognized and understood and accepted. And then slowly, guided by the steady and patient hand beside it, it began to move. One step forward through the frozen snow. Then another. Then another. Each step away from that tree was a step towards something the horse had not felt in a very long time. Warmth. Safety. Rest. And it was only just beginning. Think about what it truly means to be found. Not rescued with urgency and noise and chaos. Not saved dramatically with lights and sirens and people running. But simply, quietly, found. Discovered in the cold by someone who was paying attention when it would have been so much easier to look away. That is what happened here today. In this frozen corner of Siberia that most people will never visit, and most maps barely bother to label, one small act of attention changed everything. No cameras were set up in advance waiting for the perfect shot. No audience had gathered to watch and applaud. Just a woman walking through the snow, and a horse standing alone at a tree, and one small, unremarkable moment of human kindness in an enormous and indifferent frozen world. The kind of moment that happens every day, in places no one is watching, and changes lives completely. Now they walk together, side by side through the packed and ancient Siberian snow. Listen to the sound of it, the slow and rhythmic crunch beneath their feet, moving steadily forward through the white. One step at a time. Away from the tree. Away from the cold. This is not a fast journey. It cannot be. The snow is deep and the cold is relentless, and the distance between where they are and where they need to be is measured not just in steps but in patience. The cold demands patience. The snow demands patience. The horse demands patience. And she gives all of it, freely and without hesitation, walking slowly and steadily beside the animal, never pulling, never rushing, never demanding more than it is able to give in this moment. Just guiding. The way the best kind of help always works, not by forcing, but by walking alongside. The wilderness stretches out in every direction around them. Vast. Silent. Breathtakingly beautiful in the way that only truly wild and untouched places can be. There is no road here. No path worn into the snow by daily use. No signs pointing toward safety. Just the white, deep and unmarked and endless, and two figures moving slowly and steadily through it together. And the ice fog that hangs in the air around them, thick and pale, softening the edges of the world, making everything feel quiet and distant and safe. One step at a time through the ice fog. One step at a time toward warmth. Watch how the horse begins to change as they walk. It is subtle at first, almost too small to notice. But it is there. Its steps become slightly steadier with each passing minute. Its breathing, still visible in the frozen air, begins to find a slower and more settled rhythm. Its head lifts, just a fraction, as if the simple act of moving forward, of being led by someone who cared enough to stop, had already begun to return something to it that the cold had taken away. That is what kindness does. It does not wait until you are safe and warm and fully recovered before it starts working. It starts the moment it arrives. The very second that someone chooses to stop and reach out their hand, something begins to shift. Not all at once. Not dramatically. But steadily. Quietly. Surely. The way the best healing always happens, not in a single moment, but in 1,000 small steps through the snow. By the time the shape of a roof finally appears through the frozen trees in the distance, something has already changed between them. A trust has been built, step by step, in the silence of the Siberian wilderness. And it will not be easily broken. The amber glow of the wooden stable cuts through the blue cold light of the Siberian afternoon. It is the warmest thing either of them has seen all day. The horse pauses at the door. Just for a moment. One final breath of frozen Siberian air, rising slowly into the pale sky, and then dissolving. As if it needed that one last moment outside to fully understand what was waiting for it on the other side of that door. That the cold was behind it now. That the tree was far away. That this warm and golden and hay-scented shelter, was real. And then it stepped inside. Feel the shift in the air as the door closes behind them. From the sharp and relentless bite of the Siberian wind, to the still and quiet warmth of shelter. From the blinding white of the snow and the pale heavy sky, to the soft golden tones of worn wood and dry hay and the gentle amber light of a place that was built specifically to keep the cold out. The contrast is immediate and overwhelming and deeply comforting. This is what safety feels like. This is what it looks like when the cold finally loses. Watch the frost begin to melt. Slowly, almost reluctantly, the ice crystals on its coat begin to soften and dissolve. Each one releasing the cold it had been holding on to, letting it go, surrendering it to the warmth of the stable air. The hay is placed gently in front of it. Fresh and dry and golden. The water is warm. And for the first time in what must have felt like an eternity, this horse eats. Drinks. Breathes easily. Without effort. Without cost. Without the cold demanding something in return for every single breath. There is a profound and deeply simple peace in watching a living thing feel safe. No drama surrounds it. No noise fills the stable. Just the quiet and unhurried sounds of an animal being cared for. The soft pull of hay. The gentle sound of water. The slow and steady breathing of a creature that has finally been allowed to rest. This is not a dramatic moment. It is better than that. It is a quiet one. And quiet moments, the ones that happen without audience or applause, are always the ones that matter most. Now look at its eyes. Look at them carefully. Compare what you see now to what you saw at the beginning of this video. At the beginning, when it was standing alone at that frozen tree in -71 degrees, its eyes were heavy, glazed with frost, carrying the full and unbearable weight of the cold in every slow and labored blink. They were the eyes of something that had been waiting too long in a place too cold, and was beginning to wonder if anyone was ever going to come. Now, in the warm amber light of the stable, those same eyes tell a completely different story. They are soft, warm, present, alive in a way that goes far beyond simply surviving. There is a whole world behind those eyes. A whole life, full of mornings and movements and quiet moments in the sun that almost did not make it through this particular day. But it did. Because one person decided to pay attention. Because one person chose to walk towards something instead of past it. Because one person, in the coldest place on earth, still had enough warmth inside them to share it with something that needed it. There is a particular kind of peace that settles over you when you watch something be saved. Not the loud and celebratory kind of peace. Not the kind that comes with music swelling and crowds cheering and dramatic slow-motion replays. But the quiet kind. The kind that sits low and warm in your chest, like the first cup of something hot on a cold morning, and stays there long after the video ends. That is what this is. That is what you are feeling right now if you have watched this far. The quiet peace of having witnessed something real. Something that happened without performance, without an audience, without anyone asking for credit or recognition or applause. Just a woman. A horse. A frozen wilderness. And the simple decision to do the right thing. In a world that often feels too loud and too fast and too complicated, there is something profoundly grounding about watching something this simple and this honest. No special effects. No dramatic soundtrack. No carefully scripted moments designed to make you feel something specific. Just life, raw and cold and honest, and the warmth that one person brought into it on a frozen Siberian afternoon. Let this settle in you for a moment before we close. Not as a story about a horse tied to a tree in Siberia. Not as a satisfying rescue video that you watched on your phone on an ordinary day. But as a reminder. A quiet and honest reminder of something that is easy to forget when the world gets loud and heavy and overwhelming. That in the coldest and most desolate places, warmth still finds a way through. That kindness does not require an audience to be real. That one small act, one decision to stop and pay attention and reach out a hand, can change the entire direction of a life. The world outside this stable is still frozen. The wind is still moving across the endless Siberian white. The cold is still sitting heavy and relentless over Oymyakon, the coldest inhabited place on earth. But inside this stable, something that was lost has been found. Something that was cold is now warm. Something that was tied has been freed. And something that was alone is alone no longer. That is enough. That is more than enough. That is everything. If this video brought you peace today, if it slowed something down inside you even just for a moment, then it did exactly what it was meant to do. Share it tonight with someone who needs to be reminded that the world still has good in it. And subscribe to the site Scout, where every story we scout reminds us that no matter how cold it gets, warmth always finds a way.